text will tell you then about who the old faces are, where are they going, why are they leaving government, and then we'll try and introduce you to the new faces all within the next hour. Hopefully, we'll learn something new. It's an interactive show. Send us your thoughts as the program proceeds. So this is The Point of View. We'll be right back.
Chami, what makes it choco hot?
Mixi choco, Charlie hot. Coco womo, Charlie hot.
I call you way.
No.
What?
Manji school for Nisiko. They are the future generation. And now 5 guys say Omunyina Jomwale and Joe Bieska. But Charlie cook.
What? I did how? Come on, you're trying to cool. You're trying to hot. It's a mixing choco and a coffee. Chami, hot back why?
Some things are best taken hot, like delicious creamy mixing.
Rami, and the miniscow.
Massa, with all due respect, and now Pakani.
Hey, son.
Mixi Choco now in a new pack with a great new taste. Mixi Choco, Mixi Coffee, Channel Hot. This advert is FDA approved.
Welcome back to The Point of View. So tonight we're talking about the president's mini reshuffle. Why is it a mini reshuffle? Why have commentators expressed disappointment that we haven't seen any serious reshuffle since President Akufo-Addo took over as president in 2017? So this is his second term. We are in the second year of his second term, and there's not been a major reshuffle. People are wondering why. And then we'll sort of work our way into the new list to give you a sense of who's coming, who they are, what's the background to the people coming to replace those who are leaving, why are those who are leaving, all of that. But I feel it's nice to start with the announcement, because the announcement itself was interesting. So Alban Bagbin was on the floor, first day of their return to Parliament, and take note of the funds that were given. So here's the Speaker, Right Honorable Alban Bagbin, reading the President's communication to Parliament yesterday.
Honorable Kobina Tahir Hammond, Member of Parliament for Adanse Asokwa, Minister for Trade and Industry.
Drill ship.
2. Honorable Brian Achampo, Member of Parliament for Abetifi, Minister for Food and Agriculture. Three, Mr. Stephen Asamoah Boateng, Minister for Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs. I have further nominated the following persons as Ministers of State, subject to the approval of Parliament. 1. Honorable Mohammed Amin Adam, Member of Parliament for Canada, currently the Deputy Minister for Energy, as Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance. To replace Mr. Charles Adubuahin, the former Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance. And 2, Honorable Osei Bonsu Amon, Member of Parliament for Akwapim South, currently the Deputy Minister for Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development, as Minister of State at the Ministry of Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development.
So that was Speaker Bagbin announcing what appears to be very popular names. And notice the cheers. Katie Hammond had a big cheer. Of course, Brian Echampo had a big cheer. And I think the biggest cheer of the day was reserved for Stephen Amoah. And also interestingly, I don't know if the camera showed that, but a lot of the fans for Stephen Amoah came from the NDC side. You know, so we won't go into all of that now. We'll talk about these names and what they mean, what they represent, what the president is trying to do, and all of that shortly. But following this mini reshuffle or these replacements, a number of social commentators have said, or political commentators have expressed disappointment. For example, Umaru Sanda on Eyewitness News interviews the professor of political science, Transfer Jampo, and he says the president's reluctance to do a reshuffle is not on. He wasn't happy. Other media houses interview people like Dr. Richard Amoako-Ban, who says, look, what is needed now is not this type of thing. They need a proper reshuffle and a reduction in the list of government appointees. So why are people disappointed about the president's apparent disinterest in a reshuffle? I think there's some basis for the claim that he's not reshuffling. So for example, if you take this government, let's go to some of his ministers. Akufo-Addo was appointed first week of January 2017, right? So from like 7th or 8th January 2017. So he's been in office 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. And then he came back 2021, 2022, 2023. So 1.5 terms, right? 6 to 7 years in office. His interior minister is the same person, Ambrose Derry, not changed. His defense minister is MP for Bimbela Dominitiwo, hasn't changed. In the 2 terms, there's no indication it's going to change. His foreign affairs minister, Sheila Koboche, no change. National Security Minister is Kandapa, no change. Kweku Agyeman, health minister, with all his troubles, COVID, probe, all kinds of things, Sputnik vaccine issues, he's still the Minister for Health, no change there. Ken Ofori-Atta, he's there. As they say, Obohode Mita, he's not good, right? Finance Minister, 6 years and counting. Roads Minister, Kweku Amoako-Atta, or is it Kwesi Amoako-Atta? Kwesi Amoako-Atta, same guy. Transport Minister, Kweku Esiama, hasn't changed, all right? So that's Interior, Defense, National Security, Foreign Affairs, Health, Finance, Roads, Transport. That's 8 ministers. And these are all cabinet level ministers, no change. Employment Minister, Ignatius Bafwewa, still at post. MP for Sunyai, East or West, not sure at this point. Esla Owusu-Ekufo, Communications and Digitalization Minister, still at post. So about 10 or 11 core, and these are the core Interior Minister, Defense Minister, National Security, heavyweight ministries. Now compare that to Kufuor. Apart from his defense minister, who happened to his brother, President Kufuor changed quite a bit in his 2 terms. Osafo Maafo was finance minister. Later on, he became education minister. Bahari Edu went from local government to finance. There were major changes. Okwe, he moved from ambassador. He did communications. There were lots of changes. Jake, information. He went to tourism. Mahama did the same. Mills, even. There were changes. Now, the only ministers that have changed under Akufo-Addo's 1.5 terms, you can say the major announcement was energy, Ejaku. So Ejaku, because of the PDS deal and other issues, he was removed, right? Replaced by John Peter Amewu, who was then the lands minister. So Amewu, at the time, was considered one of the core rising stars of the MPP, Akufo-Addo's. To replace Ejaku, New York City, highly minted finance guru, vice president of the Bank of America. You obviously needed to have trusted the person you put there. So Amewu was put there. That was the major change. And then there were a couple of changes. But in the first term, apart from that, there was no real change, right? Of course, when he came in the second term, he didn't maintain his Attorney General. So Gloria Kufuor was replaced by Godfred Dame. Mustafa Hamid did not want, from all we know, he didn't really want to be a minister. He went to Zongo Ministry, and then later on, he's now MP, where he seems to be happy. So Kojo Oppong Nkrumah was elevated. Local government, Damboche was elevated from regional redistribution to local government. No surprise there. Napo was education minister for the 4 years. No change. All right. Even works and housing, Atachian was not changed. And then you can say Treme replaced Amewu. So apart from those minor changes, in the first term, everybody was intact. Adwoa Safo was also minister for gender. And even in the second term, The only changes are Attorney General, information. In fact, Kojo had taken over before even the election, so you can't really say it's a change. Environment, Frimpong Boateng replaced by Dr. Free. Energy, there's a new, Napo has moved from education to energy, right? And then Educhum has been elevated to education. Lands, so you can see the two new people he brought, his two chiefs of staff, right? So you have Samuel Abdullah Jinapo, Deputy Chief of Staff, replacing John Peter Amewu as Minister for Lands. And then you have Asenso Boache, MP for Bantama, replacing Atachia. All right. So there's a feeling that the president really is keeping the people. Agric Minister, Free is there. Alan, no change. Right. All these cabinet level ministers have not been touched. So there's a certain sense that the president either is too loyal to them, or his approach or his mindset towards reshuffle says that, look, this is the guy I want to do the job. Why do I want to change him? There's also a certain feeling that the president is very, and I want a good word, he is very difficult to convince. And you can say this even started from his appointment or his nomination of Dr. Bawumia, because when he first announced Bawumia for the 2008 election, there was uproar in the MPP. If you watched Footprints, Samens interviewed Professor Abuzier's sister, talking about Bawumia at the time, what he represented. So there's a lot of uproar. But he stuck to Bawumia 2 elections, and Bawumia has vindicated him, right? So he's a very, they say he's very, Charlie, he will die in his socks. That's the kind of person he is. So for those who know him, they are not surprised. But for a lot of commentators, they feel the government is over bloated, the government is languid, there's no new energy. And you're keeping all these guys, and they're not really performing. So that's the background to this so-called disappointment around the reshuffle. You can say he's maintained about 65% of his appointees in terms of the cabinet minister positions. Yes, he's changed deputy ministers around, but interior is the same, defense is the same, trade is the same, agric is the same, national security is the same, health is the same. And if you look at these pictures we're showing you, all these guys have not been changed. Finance is the same, roads is the same. So it's not surprising that the mini insurrection that called for Ken's dismissal did not succeed. The man is very loyal to everybody, from Kwesi Kwanta, Esla, Owusu Ekufo, Ignatius Bafwewa. And don't forget, when he first came to power, he had this small diary that he was using to read out his appointees. And he would tell you, Alan is my man for trade. Efri is my man for agric. So the guy knows what he wants to do. So we don't expect the president to do any serious reshuffle. This is what we consider a forced reshuffle. So it's not even a proper reshuffle, right? From the history of his appointees and the way he works, we don't expect a major shakeup, right? Now, let's come to what he's tried to do now and give you the context as to why people shouldn't be surprised that this is not a major reshuffle. Because there are 3 main reasons why he's had to do these announcements. We group them into 3. Some are based on resignations, we know, right? We'll come to the 2. The first 2, resignation issues. So these guys want to be president, and by the law and by the way convention works, they have to leave. So Alan Kyerematen has already started campaigning. And of course, Dr. Owusu Efriye Akoto wants to be president, agric minister, he's had to resign. So that's the first group. Resignation-induced reshuffle. Second one was the Charles Edu Boahen issue. Minister of State, Ministry of Finance. A lot of people thought he was the one being groomed to take over from Ken. Investment banker, very similar to Ken. Interestingly studied mechanical engineering or chemical engineering at University of Southern California, right? Doing well in the private sector, son of Edu Boahen, Minister of State, and that's different from Deputy Minister, so higher than John Kuma and Abna. So the Minister of State can do things a Deputy Minister can't do. The Anas scandal breaks out, he's sacked. So there was a vacancy to be filled. So you can say the president's hand has been forced, right? So you can't say it's a real reshuffle. And of course, the chieftaincy minister, Kojo Kum, ill health, right? So he's had to be replaced by Asabi. So you can say that the president has not actually done a reshuffle. He hasn't done a proper reshuffle. He hasn't a proper reshuffle. And we don't think he's going to do a reshuffle based on everything we've heard about the way he operates. He believes that these are the people he wants to deliver the results. He knows people will criticize him. He knows people will disagree with him. But hey, he's the president. He calls the shots. So those are our introductory thoughts on why the expectation of a major reshuffle are possibly misplaced, because from the man's history and the man's demeanor, he doesn't seem interested in doing a reshuffle. When we come back, we'll take a closer look at who the old faces are and who the new faces in particular are, what they bring to the table. Do they have the qualification? Will they revamp the energy in government in any way? Which ones should we be excited about? Which ones will be business as usual? Which ones will raise a few eyebrows? We'll look at those when we come back. This is the point of view. It's our first editorial. This is our second show since I returned to the platform. Let's know what you think. Which of the names excites you the most? Which of the names is most underwhelming? We'll show you who they are when we come back. Stay with us.
Get 2 months of Showmax for the price of one. It's giving double energy. It's giving celebration Ankasa. All that scandal. It's giving the perfect storm. Shishi. More epic thrills and detective vibes. You go feel, sir. It's giving what it's supposed to be giving and overdose. So subscribe now to get 2 months for only 16 Ghana cedis 99 pesos for a limited time. It's giving Showmax.
Pepsodent introduces charcoal and lemon essence. The unique combination of natural essences whitens teeth naturally for you and family, because every smile matters. New Pepsodent Herbal. Introducing a unique combination of herbal extracts in an antibacterial toothpaste for strong teeth and healthy gums that protects your family and you. Every smile matters.
Welcome back to The Point of View. Tonight we're trying to understand what the president's thinking is regarding his rearrangement of a few people in his government. We have said that he does not seem likely to do a reshuffle. Over 65% of his ministerial appointees in terms of cabinet substantive ministers have not changed. Just to remind you, the only ministries that changed within the first and the second term: information, environment, attorney general, energy, lands and sports, and then works and housing. The rest have all stayed put. So that's the first point. All right. The biggest announcement is the exit of Alan. First week in January, he announced his presidential bid. He's leaving government. We've known this for like 2 months, so it's not surprising. But the surprising news is the person who replaces him, Katie Hammond, one of the most experienced MPs in the country, if not the most experienced current MP. Katie Hammond entered parliament in the year 2001. Kobna Tahir Hammond, very young lawyer at the time. Katie Hammond, of course, in the Kufuor administration was Deputy Minister for Energy. Later on became Deputy Minister for Interior. One of the most respected MPs. I'll tell you this, when we cover parliament, a lot of times when there's confusion, Katie Hammond comes in to quell the rout. In fact, we interviewed Katie Hammond on the last show for 2021. He was in the studio. Let's just give you a flavor of what he said. That interview was reviewing the parliamentary year, and I think he came on with his friend. I believe it was the MP for Pru East. This is Katie Hammond in his element. Just watch him.
Just come out with a budget, appropriation, and whatever. It says that it needs this 1.75 levy to do all the things that it promised that it will do for the good people of Ghana. Well, we have 138 people. The central issue in this matter is the speaker. Let the speaker come and sit quietly. We have 138, they have 137. We've gone through a lot of discussions and whatever. I think a stalemate.
Are you sure that if you voted, all your 138 will vote for it?
I think politically we can all be frank.
But why can't you also reduce it? Why can't you reduce it even to 1%?
Reduce what to 1%?
The e-levy rate 1.75.
Well, I don't think we are come to discuss that. You should get the finance
minister. That's the only issue unresolved.
Well, no, the issue unresolved is the numbers. And the numbers, the speaker not sitting. So the speaker should come and sit. We use our 138 to pass our budget.
Is that not an entrenched position, sir?
Well, no, but you see, you said that it's an entrenched position. What I'm telling you about what is on the board. What is on the board now?
Because the minority's point is that this is not in the benefit of Ghanaians.
Which one is not the benefit?
The e-levy. And the rate is too high.
I've made a point many times. I think this is a good platform to make the point. It is not for the minority to exact a political punishment or exact political price from them.
Yeah, so that's K.T. Hammond. And trust me, before he will be doing his sparring with the minorities, probably engage them. I recall distinctly when Kwabena Donkor was Minister for Energy and the Dumsor days, there was a major issue around whether Dumsor had been solved or not. The media was baying for blood, and there was a meeting with Kwabena Donkor. K.T. Hammond was the guy who actually moderated the meeting. He was very skillful. He was then in opposition, but he managed to calm the media, help. I'm sure Donkor was his friend, but the way he managed that situation will tell you that he's quite strong in parliament, very respected as well. No wonder the chair. Now, why is this appointment surprising? It's surprising because a lot of people believe that K.T. Hammond was not happy with the Akufo-Addo government. Why? Because in the 8 years of MPP opposition, he led the line on the energy sector in parliament. So typically, the ranking person or the spokesperson for the minority in parliament on an issue is expected to be the one given the nod. So let me give you a specific example. For many years, from 2009 to 2016, the main voice of MPP on agric in parliament was Dr. Usu Efri-Akoto, which is kind of bring him on interview about cocoa issues. In fact, he said he didn't even understand why cocoa issue was no longer agric but finance, right? So he was one of the main brains behind MPP's cocoa policy, MPP's agric policy. So when the president won, we knew that Efri was going to be the minister of agric. We all know Ken as well. Ken was the main brain in the financing of the Akufo-Addo's campaign. So it wasn't surprising that he became the Minister of Finance, right? Apart from the fact that he's his cousin, we know that he's an investment banker. He trusts him a lot. The only two names that were surprised, Dr. Efriye, Dr. Akoto Efriye, he was a ranking guy on finance, but we know why. Of course, Ken is closer. So he was given a minister for, I think, evaluation or something. I forget, monitoring and evaluation. But K.T. Hammond was not given a position at all. So there are a lot of people who feel that he's been embittered, he's been upset, he's not been happy. And in fact, I remember a couple of weeks ago when vacancies came up and names were being mentioned, we're on air, Richard Sky said he didn't think the speculation that K.T. would take a position as Minister for Energy if a reshuffle happened was true. He said he didn't think that the man was interested. So it was quite clear that not having been given a position for 5 years, being one of the most experienced MPs, a competent lawyer, Deputy Minister for Energy and Akufo, Interior, led the line in Parliament behind the scenes. So a lot of people felt that he was unhappy with the government. So there's a school of thought that this appointment is to mend fences. The president wants to close the ranks for the party. The divisions are too many. Because those who are already campaigning have started. 2 big people have gone to campaign. We know the vice president also wants to be president, right? And then there are a few other people who are in the race, about 9 of them. So maybe this is an appointment to mend fences, and you can understand why. Because he's been leading the line in energy for many, many years. He was overlooked for Ejakun. When Ejakun left, he was overlooked for Amewu. And then after Amewu, he was overlooked for Napo. So it's like, Charlie, what do I need to do to get this thing? So he's probably said, look, I don't want any position anymore. And he's been sent to trade. Now, trade is an interesting ministry. If you look at the profile of those who had a trade ministry, you typically have to have a good international profile. So let's do the numbers. Dana Bodakwi, NDC, Ekospio Gabra, former ambassador to the US. All right. Then and the MPP, Kufuor, it was Alan. Alan is respected within the WTO circles. Some of the works is done within the UN space. He's known there. Haruna Idrisu, Hanatete Mahama. Again, you can say 2 of the shining lights under Mahama in terms of reputation and competence. So your trade portfolio is a very important portfolio. They will talk to the Americans and the Chinese. Our trade relations with our major trade partners is very critical. It's a diplomatic position, in my view. The WTO is the arena of trade disputes. So trade minister is not necessarily a good economist. It's more economics and law more, and then also diplomacy. A lot of the foreign missions in Ghana are doing diplomacy. So if you are looking for an experienced lawyer to lead your trade, probably the most experienced lawyer in parliament is K.T. Hammond. So why not kill 2 birds with 1 stone? Bring a good lawyer. That there are 2 other factors we'll bring in. You know, in Ghana, politics is about representation. So for example, when the minority change their front bench, it wasn't just about competence, about where they are coming from, right? Kassia Central region, and then we have a Volta region for Abuja, and then Amabua for Western. There's a strong feeling that there's no Ahmadi in government. Ketia Amon is not just a Muslim, he's an Ahmadiyya Muslim. And there's a feeling that he was impressed upon to say, look, you are the main guy in MPP who's an Ahmadi. You have to take the position. We've seen news items as well where chiefs within the Adansi area have said KT should be given a position and he deserves it. So we believe that he was probably impressed upon by these forces, his constituency, traditional area, religious group, to say, look, you are not there for yourself, you are there for all of us, so you have to take the position. Well, I'm sure we'll be the first to interview him when he finishes the vetting and he'll confirm or deny this. So KT Amon, a big one. Background, lawyer, BA, law and political science, both Legon and Tech, Grace in. He's been in parliament since 2001, so 24 years possibly by the time he would have done. So it's a fascinating appointment. We don't think he'll have any problems with the vetting committee because there aren't any, I mean, the drillship controversy, which is the major issue around him, has been dealt with by parliament. So we don't expect a lot of that. And if you look at the way he even conducted the probe into Ken Ofori-Atta as the chair of the appointments committee, parliament defers to that level of seniority. We expect his vetting to be very short. Next big one is obviously Agric. Now, this was surprising. Now, who's the man who's going? Dr. Uswefri Akoto, as we said, one of Nanado's closest associates, because he's been MP for 8 years, Old Tafo. He worked, he's a trained agriculturist, PhD in agri-economics, Cambridge by 85, worked with International Coffee Union. So he's a commodities guy. So this guy, on paper, actually is probably the best person to be a Greek minister. If you look at his credentials, the work is done in the commodities side. Awesome guy. For some reason, he rubs a lot of people off on the wrong side, possibly because he believes he knows his stuff. But he's been quite frontal in his view that PFJ has worked, although a lot of people believe it has not. Fertilizer subsidy, a lot of people feel has not worked. He has other views. Very, very controversial answers around why food prices are high when he claims that food production has gone up, including answers around when I asked my wife, this is not true. So he's not your best media guy, right? But again, with all the agitations around him, the president has been very loyal to him. Some people believe that it's because of what he is, not just the fact that he's the president's friend. He is the direct son of Bafo Akoto, who is the founder of the National Liberation Movement. Now, for those of you who know your political history, that was the movement which is one of the main antecedents of the MPP in a way, right? This movement had a view on federalism, strong Bafo Akoto, one of the most respected traditional rulers. He was a linguist of the Asante Hene. In fact, the Ria Akoto lectures that Ria Akoto is like the seminal case. If you're a lawyer in Ghana and you go to Ghana Law School and you don't know Ria Akoto, I doubt everybody knows Ria Akoto. That's the Akoto. So that's his father, right? So this guy is Ashanti royalty. So we believe that there was no way the president was going to touch him. I mean, if you are president of Ghana, you need to be in the good books of the Asante, and we think his strength there has, in addition to his own qualification, has kept him there. Now, the surprise is the announcement of Brian. Now, Brian Acheampong's announcement has been, I mean, of course, insiders will say they are not surprised, but even within the recent month, Brian wasn't considered to be in the good books of the president at all. In fact, there's a strong view that the clamor for the removal of Ken Ofori-Atta 2 months ago, October, November, December, there's a strong view that that whole plot was hatched around Brian Acheampong. In fact, there's a view that the meetings to decide on the MPs from MPP side asking that Ken be removed were held at his hotel. And some people believe that he's actually the main guy behind this thing. So the president obviously can't be happy with him, unless, of course, the president thinks that's normal. Clearly, he and Ken will not be on the same page, right? So that's the first surprise. The second surprise is also that he has many interesting credentials. Agric is not one of the credentials. So we went through his CV. Brian is an interesting guy. Of course, he is more known for the security aspects of things, right? So MP for Abetifi. He's been, look at the committees on defense and interior, appointments and selection, foreign affairs, former Minister of State at Interior and former Minister of State at National Security. I recall an interview I had with him on Ayaso West Wuogon. He was the center of that probe. A lot of people felt he was at the center of all that happened. And his movement from national security to interior, controversies around the Kandapar issue. So Brian is seen as a security guy. In fact, he's a retired soldier. For those of you who don't know, he's a retired soldier of the U.S. Air Force. Let me list his training: anti-terrorism, force protection, laws of armed conflict, conventional defense training, weapons, small arms and fuels. Charlie, the guy is a security man. Right? So, but that's the point. Minister role, do you have to be an agriculturist? Possibly not. And of course, he's done different things. He's also known as a very successful businessman. So he has business interests in hotels, in agric actually. So he's actually a farmer as well. And of course, many degrees, MBAs and master degrees are plenty. He recently did a PhD in information. I think it's digital informatics or something in the information side. So digital technology kind of guy. So he's an IT security guy. Why is he Minister for Agric? Again, our analysis is that this is more fence mending. Because Brian is considered a very powerful rising star. All right? He's a man of means from a lot of the analysis we've read. And because not every politician is able to combine business successfully with politics, he's done very good business. So he's considered to be like the kingpin of the Kwewu MPs. And the Kwewu constituency are about 6, right? So you have Davis OPK's constituency, you have Frimpong in Koko, and then you have Abetifi where he is as well. He's considered to be like the main power broker there. And mind you, Ghana in politics is not just about competence, it's about representation. There's a strong view that there is no prominent Kwewu in Akufo-Addo's government. And if you look at the MPP, majority of the MPs are in Ashanti, Eastern. And the Eastern is mainly, of course, Achims and Kwewus. So there's a strong view by the Kwewus that they are not well represented in government. So this may well be an attempt to, again, mend fences with somebody who's considered to be like, he's gone rogue, we want to bring him back home. And then also, the Kwewus need a proper representation, right? Because they always vote for the MPP, the 6 or so constituencies, and they don't have, I think apart from Kisi Ejabeng, who's a special prosecutor, when you do the analysis, you don't see a lot of people from that aspect of the Eastern region in government. So we think that this is to solve a number of problems. And Agric is a very important ministry, so you need somebody who's on the move, right? And maybe Agric is national security. Why not? Food security is national security. It's part of human security. Who knows? So it will be interesting the kind of vetting he gets, particularly from the NDC side, because a number of them still, despite the fact that he was cleared by the Ayaso West Wuogon report, a number of people still feel strongly that he has something to do with some of the confusion there. We don't know who's going to head the appointments committee on the NDC side, because there's new leadership as well. So we'll say, watch this space. Watch the Brian space, because I believe it will be a longer vetting than the one for Katie. I believe it will be a longer vetting. He's only 51 years old, so he's obviously energetic and young. So Brian is going to be an interesting vetting. For us, we think that for the president to replace Owusu Efri-Akoto, who he considers a very important minister, he obviously wants something who has the strong personality, because Agric is very important. He needs somebody who can adequately represent that ministry, because it's not a ministry to toy with. Kori Kosika was Kufuor's Agric minister. Agric ministers are very important because a lot of Ghanaians are into farming. So what is clear to us, the president rates him highly now, or the party rates him highly, and they feel that he can help them in the last 2 years of this tenure to redeem what is left of the agric sector, because most of the agric sector players are not happy with the minister. From GAU to the Farmers and Fishermen Association, a lot of them have said it's not working. So we see how Brian will fare. Let me do the next big one, and then I'll come back after a short break. The next big one is not the chieftaincy one. We don't think chieftaincy is that big. We actually think that the most important, the third most important is the finance one. The finance one, I'll explain. So if you look at the profile of the Ministry of Finance, Ken is an investment banker, and his Minister of State is Charles, who was elevated from Deputy Minister. So Ken and Charles, they think the same. A lot of people felt that when Ken with his health issues was probably on his way out. People felt Charles was being groomed to take over from him. Enter Anas, resignation or dismissal. So you need a like-for-like replacement, but you don't have a lot of people like Charles in politics. In fact, we are told that when he was originally approached, he didn't want to do politics. His father said do by him, but a lot of investment bankers and the way they see risks don't really want to get into politics. And I'm sure people close to him will say, look, we told you so. Now you have had to be sacked. If you had stayed working with your banking friends, you'll be making a lot of money and not have all these problems. But that's an aside. Now, who is Mohamed Amin Anta? Amin is interesting. Amin has been in politics since a teenager, right? He's been TESCON secretary for UCC many years ago. He actually took over from Mustafa Hamid. Then he became NUC secretary and NUC's president in 1998. In fact, in the year 2000, when he ran for MP for one of the Tamale constituencies, he was only 27. And he's been groomed. He ran for Tamale Central, he lost. He ran, even prior to that, for Chohu, he lost as well. He's now MP for Karaga. But Kufuor, for example, made him deputy minister for the Northern region and Tamale mayor. Tamale is the third big city in Ghana. For Kufuor to make you Tamale mayor, he really rates you highly. Nanado comes in, Nanado makes him deputy energy minister. So if there's an Nanado Kufuor divide, Amin ticks all the boxes. He's everywhere. Deputy minister, in charge of power. In charge of the petroleum. Amin was the founder of Africa Center for Energy Policy with Peter Amewu, right? Providing think tank support for the MPP. So you can imagine, in fact, there was a story about when Akufo-Addo was in opposition. Amin and his team were doing a lot of work for him in research, and within the period, he went to get his PhD as well. His PhD is quite interesting. His PhD is into something they call petroleum fiscal systems. And I think that his job is cut out. Yes, his PhD is into something on petroleum and, petroleum fiscal systems and fiscal policy in resource-led economies. The basic point there is that we need more money from our petroleum sector. Ghana gets less than 20% of tax revenue from petroleum. The African average is 50%. So maybe his job is to say, hey, come and show us how to tax the petroleum guys more. I don't know. But the government needs a lot of money. But in terms of his background, studied economics at UCC, and he has an MPhil in economics from the same university as well. And then, of course, PhD. Actually, if MPhil is from outside the country. PhD from Dundee University, where he graduated in 2014. So we think this is actually a very key appointment. And interestingly, Amin gave us an interview only last week. This very controversial oil for gold or gold for oil deal, if I have that voice, I'll add for you. He was the main guy because there was a confusion around whether we're going to do direct barter or whether we're going to pay money. And the deputy minister, Mesa, spoke on Eyewitness News. It didn't really go well. The next day, Amin was on almost 10 radio stations. I don't know if you guys have the audio. Maybe let's listen to him. Trying to douse this very... And mind you, this fire was directly in Bawumia's court because this is a vice presidential initiative for all intents and purposes. Amin was brought in to quench the fire. Listen, I think it was interviewed by Godfred and Nathan on the breakfast show. Just listen to a sample of what he said.
Bank of Ghana sells the gold. The gold buyer is selected by the oil supplier and the oil supplier. So it doesn't mean that you just sell the gold, get the money, and then you go use the money and go and look for oil and buy. That is not the way this program is being executed.
All right. Okay. So that's well and good. So this 40,000, this quantity we are talking about, 40,000, what exactly was brought? Was it oil or was it petrol or diesel?
It was diesel, 41,000 metric tons.
41,000 metric tons of diesel.
Yes, at a monetary value of $40.6 million.
Okay, so 41,000 metric tons of diesel was brought in. Great. I'm curious. So if that's the case, when should we expect, say, a consignment of fuel, since they are also, or petrol, since they are also petrol users in Ghana?
Well, I think that we have communicated before that this parcel of vessel that came was a test cargo.
Okay.
Because when you are introducing a new policy, you need to pilot. You need to learn lessons before you roll out fully. And we've communicated that openly, that this was a test cargo to enable us test all the systems we have put in place, whether the systems will work or not, what lessons we need to learn from that. And so bringing in a cargo of 41,000 metric tons is just 10% of the domestic requirement of petroleum products. 10%. Okay? And you don't expect 10% to affect prices immediately. It is not. Because don't forget that even if we brought it in at a very low price, the 10% is going to be commingled, okay, if you like, blended with petroleum products the OMCs have bought from other sources. I mean, expensive sources. And so if you blend using a weighted average price, your price will still be high. If at all there is any reduction, it will be marginal. And that is what we have experienced. The marginal decrease in prices only by those who have taken that 10%. You are not going to find the marginal reduction throughout the market. Okay. Only those who took the product. And some of those who took the product actually reduced their prices marginally when they took the product last week. For example, Dukes Petroleum, the market was selling at 15.25 for them. They reduced it to 14.42 per liter. GB Petroleum, they were selling at 15.5, but when they took the gold for oil for diesel, they reduced it to 15.10. Grid Petroleum, they were selling at 15.51. They reduced it to 14.6. And so these reductions were done before the major price adjustment came up on the 1st of October for the next window. Okay, so what it means is that all those who took the gold for oil products, because they have to blend with other products they already have bought from other expensive sources, the reduction is just going to be marginal. Well took their delivery only yesterday. They took 15 million liters of diesel from Boss only yesterday. And this morning, the price of diesel by Guel has declined marginally. It's gone down from 15.90 to 15.25. Okay, so as far as we are concerned, the test we are trying to do and the lessons we want to learn, we are actually learning those lessons. We are seeing the impact. And so when we roll out completely and then we increase the volumes, our target is to be able to supply 50% of the market. Okay. Then you will see that the impact will be greater.
So that was Mohamed Amin Adam, right? I mean, you can say what you want about the gold for oil deal. And it's interesting, he's not been speaking that much. In opposition, he was quite vocal with ASEP. And it's quite interesting, side analysis. If you look at Amin and Amewu, their fortunes have been interesting because Amin was Amewu's boss. But when they came into office, Amewu became Amin's boss, right? Because Amin was the chief executive of ASEP, Amewu was his number 2. But when Amewu was moved from lands to energy, Amewu became his boss and Amin was the deputy, right? And now Amewu is moved to railway, which you can say is a lower ministry. And Amin is now Minister of State in Finance, which, if you look at the organization of government, is a very key ministry. We don't expect him to have any problems at the vetting committee. He seems well, except a few challenges in the Karaga area. His election, he struggled to get into parliament, possibly because of the seats. Tamale South, Tamale Central, that area is very strongly NDC. Karaga in the northern region, Amin and Hassan Tampoli are new entrants into parliament. They are contemporaries. Hassan Tampoli is the deputy minister for transport. They are contemporaries. Their concerns are not too far off as well. And they seem to have similar political trajectory. Amin being the economist, Tampoli being the lawyer. So he is, in my view, one of the rising stars in NPP. He will obviously be in that. I mean, he's a member of the party's national council. So for as long as NPP is alive, he will be there if he's alive. So he's that kind of person. Keep an eye on Amin, right? Keep an eye. It's like one of the people who will be there for a long time. God giving him life. So that's Mohamed Amin Adam. We don't expect him to have a lot of problems. His background is okay. Economics, MPhil, and petroleum extractives are very key. And then some of the work is done within the civil society space, I think civil society will like him. I don't know whether Energy Civil Society has benefited from all his civil society work, because PIAC is not happy with the way the government has not acted on their reports. But I feel altogether it's an interesting and good appointment. So Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam coming in for Charles Edu Boahen. When we come back, we'll tell you about Asabi. That also appears to be a fence mending appointment, because Asabi has not necessarily been within Akufo-Addo's kitchen cabinet. So why is he making a comeback? He ran for chairman and he lost. We'll talk about that. Then in the deputy musical chairs, there's a musical chairs going on in the deputy ministerial position. So Amin's movement has led to like some merry-go-round. The one that stands out we'll talk about is Stephen Amoah. We'll talk about that when we come back. This is our editorial on the point of view. Just thinking through what's the president's mind around his mini reshuffle. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to The Point of View. Tonight we're looking at the president's mini reshuffle. So far we've looked at the fact that the president is not really one for reshuffles. We've established that point. These are forced reshuffles. K.T. Hammond coming in, very interesting appointment. We don't expect it to have any much problems. Brian Acheampong, most interesting of all the appointments. He will spend a longer time, but he will go through, we believe, the process we believe he will go through based on all we've seen. Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam, from Deputy Energy to Minister of State in Finance, one of the most significant appointments. Now, Chieftaincy Minister, a lot of people didn't even know that our Chieftaincy Minister was not well, which is a problem. That should tell you that the ministry is not really a high-profile ministry. He's an MP, Benza Kojokum. In fact, one of the problems MP has had in Parliament is that, apart from Adjoa Safo's absence, this minister has not been that well. So he's not been in Parliament a lot. So the 137, a lot of times NDC actually has a larger number, because when the second deputy speaker is in the chair, is an independent candidate, MPP actually has a lower number than the NDC. So he resigned also in January. So 3 resignations resigned. And who is Asabi? Well, Asabi was very prominent in the Kufuor era, right? Information, tourism. You know, he's rambunctious. Asabi cannot be overshadowed. Media love him. He gives good headlines. He's always out there. Even with SIGA. Like SIGA, we didn't know what SIGA was until Asabi took over. Like, what is SIGA? Right? So Asabi will always make news. MP from Fansiman for one term, beaten by Aquinas. So there's a view. Is he from Central? Is he from Konongo? He was born in Konongo, but you know, Akans. So also partly from Fansiman, right? He's not really been considered to be within Akufo-Addo's group. He's not an Akufo-Addo guy, supposedly. But, you know, the MPP and politics is always a game of compromise. He ran for chairman, and a lot of people feel he probably could have won, was it not for Stephen Intim? And Stephen Intim having run for so long, I think there was a bit of sympathy. And again, because of some of the past issues between him and the president, some people didn't feel, they didn't want to create an Afoko situation. So I don't know, whatever. But he did not win. He did creditably, or he did not win. But I believe he's used the chairmanship campaign to work his way back into the center. Because to be honest with you, his tenure at SIGA was quite remarkable in the sense that they got more prominence, they were publishing reports, they were giving more regular interviews. We got to discuss state-owned agencies in a more meaningful way. And I think his vibrancy is key. So you watch out for Asabi. He will be Minister of Chieftaincy. You will start seeing live TV event, National Chieftaincy Conference. He's that kind of guy. Like they call him the class prefect, you know. We need people like that. He has natural leadership qualities. He knows how to bring people together. He talks a lot. We like people like that. So we wish him well. He's not been in Parliament for a long time, so we don't think he won't get the same treatment as the first 3. You know, Parliament, Asabi has been out for a while, so he will have to, you know, he will have to properly be vetted. Although chieftaincy isn't considered such a high-profile ministry, I think if he gets it right, they are one of the key allies a government needs to bring development. So we wish him well. We still think we think he will go through, although he may spend a longer time, because he talks tourism. He has ideas on everything: tourism, information minister, a lot of things. So Asabi, a good appointment. Now the one that Let me show you the musical chairs. So this is the musical chairs that's happening. So the movement of Amin has occasioned, like, it's called domino effect, right? So Charles Oluwahin was sacked, his needs were replaced. And mind you, the president took over 2 months to appoint Amin. That's an interesting point. Because Charles was sacked last year. It's taken about 3 months to replace him. It tells you that it was a very carefully thought out decision. So obviously Amin has been considered worthy, having gone through whichever process they went through. Now, Amin is deputy for energy. Herbert Krapper brought in, Herbert is an Akufo-Addo man, right? I mean, for us in the media, we knew him as one of Akufo-Addo's aides when he was in opposition. Went to do his law program. And Alan, there's a feeling that he was brought into the trade ministry to provide an ear for the Akufo-Addo people in an Alan ministry. I don't know whether that makes sense to you, but because Alan Osemase obviously wants to be president, we all know this. So his deputies must include people that the president, so Befi, for example, is one of those guys, MP for Jabing, and then you have Herbert Krapper. So it's like, these are the Akufo-Addo people in the trade ministry. So Herbert is trusted. He's a lawyer, he has development finance background, so he lectures as well. So there are some ministers or deputies who they tick the box, the loyalty box. So I'm not questioning his competence, but I'm just saying, because we don't know his background in energy. But the truth is that a competent lawyer should be able to work in any ministry. This is my feeling. Because law is the foundation of almost everything. So a good lawyer should be able to be minister for most ministries, right? So there isn't much of a problem there. The learning curve is very steep for energy, particularly in the petroleum side. So he has a lot of books to read between today and the vetting. He has to put his leg in hot water because the standards in the petroleum sector are very high. I'll give you an example. Egbert Fibel is the Petroleum Commission chairman. He's not been in the media for a lot because it's a very intense ministry. Because you are dealing with Tallow, you are dealing with Eka, you are dealing with Jet. Like, these are big global behemoths who have 200 lawyers. So if you're going to be a minister and you're going to negotiate with them, you need to know your stuff, right? So he has a lot to learn, and we wish him well there. So they brought Herbert Krapper there from trade, right? And they brought Stephen Amoah. Who is Stephen Amoah? I thought I would show you a bit about Stephen Amoah. He's always on air, 53 years old. He said something that is interesting. So he went to Opoku-Ware school, and he was interviewed some time ago about whether Opoku-Ware was the best school in Ashanti. And I love this answer so much. He said, Prempeh boys are just irritating waves, you know. And he said, Opoku-Ware is like Presec in Accra and Infantipim in Cape Coast. You know, I love that what he said. Prempeh boys are not happy with him. But he said, Opoku-Ware is like the Presec of Accra. Let me read. It was so nice. He said, Opoku-Ware is the best school. Prempeh guys are only destructive interference of waves. CEO of Maslock. He used to be the CFO of Ken City. Yeah, you didn't know that. He was the CFO of Ken City. So he used to work for Ken at Japan. He has a PhD. He's an actuary. KNUST tech guy. MP for Inshaeso. He's had this running battle with another young MP. They've sort of, this guy wins. Yeah. So we don't know how he'll fare there. What I would say though is that he's not a shrinking violet. So what happens with him is that even if he will talk. I mean, he's been on the big show many times. He will come to the media and he will do the interview. He will argue. He will fight. So you will see this guy defending the government on even non-trade issues. I don't know if I have a voice clip. If you have an audio, let's show a video. Let's show. He is the NDC guys were giving him fans. In fact, they call him sticker. You know, you get fans. Let's watch a quick video of him.
There's no jurisdiction in the world that one can say there's no corruption. Even Jesus Christ, the 12 disciples, we had Judas. But what we are saying is that as much as we are addressing the issue, if we take away politics, and as a country we see that in this country there is no institution. Is it the police? Is it the army? Is it maybe MPP? Is it NDC? Is it the church? Is it the chieftaincy? It is a national issue, canker. Then we know we are fighting corruption. Because, look, I had a nephew in the house. He couldn't have spelled a way. He had never even heard Gangam Twan. raping public purse, and these were utterances from, in fact, courts of competent jurisdiction, Supreme Court judge, under His Excellency former President John Dramani Mahama. So, Mr. Speaker, what we are saying is that we agree together. We want to fight corruption, but in their attempt, some are doing better and some are doing better. However, whether we are doing 1% or 2%, all the regimes, whether NBC regime or MPP regime, corruption has been extremely inimical, dysfunctional, and it has given rise to a lot of higgledy-piggledy, mambo-mambo, and then abracadabra. And I think it is time we all put all these things to a stop, and as a country begin to redefine new paradigm shifts in fighting corruption. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, so that was, they call him Stika, Opokuwari, they call themselves Akatechie. So we don't expect any major issues in Parliament. Usually, parliamentarians take their MPs through a less intense grilling. He's very popular with the NDC as well. Yes, so Kennedy Kankam was the other guy I was looking for, Kennedy Kankam. So Stika is the deputy. So there are 3 deputies in trade. Now, I think the reason why people are so worried is that the government is still quite big. Even though the president reduced the size in the second term. I mean, Ministry of Trade has, K.T. Amon is going to head it if he wins. There's Befi from Ghana Free Zones Board. There's the MP for Ikropong, Dokuya. And there's also Stika, 3 deputies for trade. Like how, finance as well. John Kuma is there, Abuna is there, Minister of State as well. So there's a lot of ministers still. Some people feel that this is not what they expect. They expect the president to trim down his government. In fact, CDD have a document where they say the president can run the country with 36 ministers. But that would be a different editorial. So I don't think this mini reshuffle should cause a lot of excitement. I don't expect it to be the revamp that people want. The main revamp, and the fact that the finance minister is still seeing the debt exchange through. The key ministries that you call the economic ministries, right? Trade, transport, roads, finance. These ministries determine the fortunes of a government in terms of infrastructure investments. There hasn't been a lot of change there. And people want to see those changes. We don't know whether he doesn't have people, whether he doesn't want to change. But we don't think the president is inclined to make any change. And as long as that remains, this will be the state of play. This will be the state of play. We'll be covering live the vettings, and we'll be analyzing a lot of these things. But we wish the new appointees or the nominees well. And as media will hold their feet to the fire. But watch this space. Maybe the president might surprise us. Who knows? By the time the show ends, maybe there will be a big list of reshuffles, and we'll come back and tell you more about who's there. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Thank you for watching. My name is Ben Avle. This has been our first editorial for a while, looking at Akufo-Addo's mini reshuffle. Stay with City TV. We'll be with you next time. Bye-bye.